So yeah, I'll kick things off. Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to launch this pretty short webinar series. The hope here is to provide a few different videos in a shorter format that kind of fits with everybody's schedules. We know everybody's busy, particularly folks in the transportation departments. And also trying to juggle spring break around this time of year. So um, appreciate you all jumping on. This webinar series is hosted by the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, but is supported by grant funds from the World Resources Institute. WRI has given us a lot of resources and funding to be able to put on this webinar series and provide additional technical assistance for folks that want help switching to electric school buses. So I will have a quick slide here to talk through the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about sort of the cost savings opportunities and some of the benefits overall for electric school buses, grant opportunities that are available in Nevada right now and some future ones. Joanne's on to talk about the health benefits of electric school buses and some of the pollution effects from diesel buses. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Nevada right now, who has adopted electric school buses, who has buses ordered. Seth is a participant of our Clean School Bus program and has gotten almost all the way through the program. He's expecting to receive his buses in the next couple of months. And I brought him on to talk through his experience with that program so that we can have some local folks talking about what's going on here in Nevada. And we really do want this to be an opportunity for folks to engage during this webinar. So we set it up where participants would raise their hand. So there's a function on the Zoom call here for folks to raise their hand, and then Tina will let me know, and we can stop and answer any questions folks have. And also going to provide opportunity for questions after Joanne and Seth jump on. So,
Yeah, I'm just going to hop in here and say that you may not have seen that function when you first came on, but now I'm going to go ahead and give everyone the ability to raise their hand and then speak if they'd like to during the webinar.
great. Thanks, Tina. All right. So goal of the webinar series in general. So three parts. We're really going to be talking about the challenges of electric school buses specific to Nevada. A lot of the issues that were raised when we first went out and promoted the Clean School Bus program 3 years ago. We understand that Nevada is a very rural state. A lot of folks in those rural communities have very long bus routes that do not work for electric school buses. But we wanted to talk through some of those challenges and where electric school buses might still fit, even for some of those rural communities. Many school districts are using electric buses for more local routes that don't need to be on the road for as long, also adapting to different charging scenarios. So, we're going to talk through a lot of those specific issues that folks are having in Nevada in particular. And I really, the goal here is to bring on folks that have done this. So we've got Seth today from Nevada, who obviously hasn't received his buses yet, but he's gone through a lot of the work to get there. Um, and we're going to have someone from Oregon who's going to talk through launching electric school buses for the last 5 years. They've moved a lot of their fleet over, and they're going to be able to talk to a lot of the challenges that they've seen over the last 5 years. And really, this is just an opportunity for us to provide a lot of knowledge to everybody about what works and what doesn't, and try to be real about the challenges and the opportunities. So today is really about health and cost benefits and what's happening here in Nevada. On April 14th, we'll send out a reminder email about this so we can get it on everybody's calendar. We're going to talk about route planning and range anxiety, which is one of the top issues that I hear over and over again. Craig Beaver from Beaverton School District in Oregon has 5+ years of experience launching electric school buses, and he's going to talk to, the challenges he's seen and some of the improvements that he's seen in electric school buses over those years. And then we're going to bring on the experts from the companies themselves. So the third webinar, we're going to bring on a representative from Model One, who's a dealer for the ride buses made by the company BYD. And then we're bringing Highland Electric is a company that helps sort of outsource buses and charging for folks, and they're going to speak to kind of both the buses and the charging to try to break down what's happening there and some of the things people should be looking for. All right, with that said, I'm going to go through a few slides on the financial benefits and the grant opportunities that we have in Nevada right now. Then I'm going to hand it over to Joanne. So the Clean School Bus Program is implemented through the EPA. The Nevada Clean Energy Fund applied for this grant along with school partners back in 2021. And we've had some of the school districts sort of drop out of that program. And so there's still some funding available for some schools that are interested. We're still trying to fill the gap in the amount of funding that we got. So the program offers, based on whether you are in a priority district or not. So if you serve Title I students or on a special list of schools that serve a priority neighborhood, then you get an additional funding amount up to $395,000 for a Class 7 plus bus. Non-priority school districts up to $250,000. That's the bus size that we're seeing most folks take advantage of in this program. And there is, in addition to this funding, there is another round of clean school bus funding coming out later this year. The EPA just sent out an RFI requesting some more information about that funding opportunity. So we do expect the government to release another round of funding for these buses. So if that's something you're interested in, now would be a good time to reach out to us and try to coordinate an application for those funds. In addition to the funds that we have through our Clean School Bus grant, there are still funds through the Volkswagen settlement. Now, it feels like ages ago that we had this funding opportunity, but some of that money is still sitting in a grant fund. About $1 million of the original 25 million remains in that account, and we're working very closely with NDEP on coordinating any funds that we can't cover through our Clean School Bus program. This VW settlement fund essentially fills the gap. So many of the buses that we're seeing come in at about $50,000 to $60,000 higher than the grant amount, the maximum grant amount that we can offer. So this fund allows us to cover that additional cost as well as the cost for charging infrastructure for the buses. So together with these two funding sources, we're essentially able to cover the full cost of the bus and the charging infrastructure associated with these buses right now. We kind of have probably a few more slots, a few more buses funding opportunities that would need to be taken advantage of probably in the next 3 to 6 months. And I wanted to break down kind of the what the cost implications are between an electric and a diesel school bus. So WRI provided this information. It's generalized, so I want folks to know that there's the caveat there. In terms of Nevada particular we have some of the cheapest electricity in the country, and we also, in certain parts of Nevada, have some of the highest gas prices in the state or in the country as well. So these numbers aren't like exactly tailored to Nevada, but the general takeaway here is that the electric school buses themselves still represent a significant upfront cost investment that doesn't really, provide cost parity over the life of the bus right now. So these incentives are really designed to help bring that cost down and make it more of a financial decision for school districts to make the leap to electric. There are also pretty significant cost savings on the fuel side, estimated to be somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 over the life of that bus. Um, there's a slight maintenance and operations savings. I wouldn't sort of double underline that one, just knowing that there's trade-offs between the two different buses. But the fuel savings is really where kind of the big savings opportunity is right now. And with this funding that we have, it just represents a really amazing opportunity for school districts to take advantage of the funds and reduce the cost of their bus transportation. Um, so with that said, that was kind of my quick overview of the costs. I'd be happy to dig into that in more detail and a follow-up. But I'm going to hand it over to Joanne to talk about the health benefits.
Thanks, Clayton, and hi again, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here. So I'm here as a family doctor. I've worked in Nevada for about 25 years providing primary care, mostly in the Las Vegas area, but I've done some support work in Carlin and Jackpot, and I worked per diem for about a year in Elko. So I have a good understanding of Elko winters and what you all are dealing with somewhat with transportation, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Seth. I'm here on behalf of a volunteer organization that I help lead called Nevada Clinicians for Climate Action. And we are health professionals that volunteer our time to think about impacts like heat and air pollution and how those interface with health. And I'm really happy to be joined by our UNLV School of Public Health student intern, Zinzanita King. Hopefully she'll be able to unmute in a minute, and because I want her to help me in a minute with this presentation. So I
Yes.
just have a little bit of information, and then I'm happy to have a discussion or answer any questions. You can go ahead, Clayton, and advance. So really, the bottom line message that I'm interested in is that we think about all the costs that Clayton just presented in terms of capital costs and fuel costs, but we often don't ignore one of the hidden costs, which is that uh, buses and vehicles that emit tailpipe pollution cause a large amount of health costs. And World Resource Institute has uh, estimated that that's about $660,000 annually in Nevada, only from diesel school buses alone, not even counting all the other transportation costs. We know that transportation is really the biggest source of air pollution in the state, and this is a little piece that we can start to tackle. So let's look a little bit about why that is. You
All
can go ahead,
right.
Zinzanita.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
perfect. Sorry if my camera has any issues or anything. I've been trying to work it out. But so for the diesel pollution outside and inside the bus, more than 21 million students ride a bus daily, specifically diesel. 90% of school buses are diesel, and other diesel buses generally pollute more. Replacing older diesel buses with electric has larger health benefits. And tailpipe air pollution accumulates in local areas, so people can be harmed by bus emissions even if the general air quality is good. And drivers are exposed for long periods of time. Limited study on health impacts to them. Um, so with the diesel coming out of the bus, it comes inside of the bus as well, and it stays there for really long amounts of time, impacting the students and the driver.
Thanks. So I think it's important to understand that we have a fairly limited number of studies about school buses specifically, but what we know about transportation tailpipe emissions in general is that people who are right next to where the tailpipe is and close by where vehicles are running have higher exposures and known health impacts. And this is really important for children. We always say in medicine that children aren't just little adults, they're different. And some of the ways that they're different is they have faster metabolism. So their hearts beat faster, they have faster breathing rates. So if there is pollution in the air, they are intaking that more. They're also more likely to be running around outside and playing and breathing fast outside than us lazy adults who tend to sit around and spend more time inside. So they have more exposure. Importantly, their organs are still developing, and this is really important with air pollution in terms of lungs and brains. So for lungs, if an infant, a young child, or a school-aged child is regularly breathing in pollution, that causes inflammation in the lungs. And the inflammation stunts lung development, and those children will not have as good of lung function even as adults. Even if they move to a clean area later without so much pollution, they will have ongoing lung scarring from their early life exposures. It's almost similar to if you grow up in a household with a smoker, you have ongoing impacts even in adulthood. Brain development we know is super important in children, and there's now a lot of strong evidence that of neurodevelopmental harms from traffic-related air pollution. So that includes likely a higher risk for autism in young children and a higher risk for learning disabilities. And so that's really important. And then immune systems are developing. So pollution can increase our risk of having infections, making us sick. If a child is impacted with air pollution and has asthma, they have also a higher chance of having a lung infection like bronchitis or pneumonia. Those things work together. And finally, children often lack the ability to protect themselves. So if I'm standing behind a car and it's emitting a lot of pollution, I probably have more ability to move away and protect myself than the average child getting off a school bus, getting on a school bus, or playing in a schoolyard near where buses are idling. Next slide. So here's what we know about transportation emissions. We always think, oh, air pollution causes asthma, and that is very true. And we have good evidence, especially in children, that tailpipe emissions from both cars and buses make asthma more common. They make asthma worse. They make a child more likely to have an asthma exacerbation or a flare-up of their asthma. There have been studies that show that air pollution right at a local school increases school absenteeism, and this is especially important in low-income schools. Partly that's because many low-income schools are located near busy highways or roadways, so that cleaning up just one school may be able to help reduce school absences. As I just mentioned, children with regular air pollution exposure grow up with stunted lungs. Lots of studies link it to neurologic problems, developmental delays, and learning problems. And there was a study in Georgia where a district switched to electric school buses, and both their reading and math test scores improved. I don't think that's proof in and of itself. It's just one study, but I think it's fascinating with all that we're doing to try to improve test scores. Our organization has partnered with the Nevada Department of Public and Behavioral Health, and we're in partnership in Southern Nevada with the county and the Clark County School District on a project to reduce idling emissions. I view this as like the last rung on a ladder. Because we know that as a vehicle idles, it produces a lot of emissions. If diesel school buses are idling, they're producing emissions. Obviously, the most effective way to reduce idling is to switch to an electric vehicle that doesn't have any tailpipe, so it doesn't have any tailpipe emissions. The second most effective way would be the automatic ignition on-off. the third most effective way is to try to influence people's behavior. So we are educating students in 2 middle schools about air quality and about transportation pollution and emissions, and they're engaging in a fun contest related program to try to talk to their parents about idling and encourage reduced idling during school pickup and drop off, to talk to their bus drivers. And we are open if you all know anybody who's working on the educational side or the curriculum development side. We're opening to partnering with rural school districts on this in the next school year. Next slide. And then one more opportunity, again, more for people that are on the facility side, is that the American Lung Association is offering mini grants to facilitate improving school air quality inside and outside of school. They have a priority for rural and tribal and Title I schools. And so it's a small grant program, but again, if any of you are aware of anybody on the facility side or anybody in administration that might be interested, they have funding available. Thank you. This is our organization, Nevada Clinicians for Climate Action. Basically, we think that every Nevadan deserves a healthy environment, so we engage in public education, health professional education and organization, and we engage in advocacy. So that's our website is at the QR code, and my email is there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joanne. We can take questions now too. I will say we're going to record this webinar and provide it. For anyone on your team who may have missed it, we'll also send an email out after the webinar with contact information. So if you're interested in those programs and you want to reach out to Joanne, we'll share contact info in a follow-up email. Okay, we can certainly do more questions at the end. There aren't any now. Thanks again, Joanne. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about electric school buses in Nevada. So there are 57 committed electric school buses. 32 of those are in operation today. And the 25 awarded electric school buses, so that was our Clean School Bus Grant Program. I think that essentially covers most of it, although a couple of those buses are actually in service now, so this data may be just like a tad bit outdated. But yeah, I mean the general sense here is that that I want to deliver here is that electric school buses are happening in Nevada, and I think a lot of the feedback that we got kind of 2-3 years ago when we were originally reaching out about this program, many of the school districts were hesitant to jump on board until they knew that there were other school districts in the state doing electric school buses, and they wanted to hear about those experiences. So I would say that right now we're really in the launch mode. I don't know that anyone's really had their buses long enough, maybe with the exception of Washoe, to have real like on the ground experience. But we have a lot of buses coming online in the very near future or in the sort of recent past, and I think that experience is gonna grow really quickly here in Nevada. I wanted to highlight some of the school districts themselves that are implementing electric school buses. So Clark County in particular, I know that they have received their buses and they are parked. They have a partnership. There was a special program with NV Energy last year for grants to receive some free chargers as part of a vehicle to grid pilot program. So Clark County, while they have their buses, they're waiting for NV Energy to finalize and install those chargers so that they can use those buses. Washoe County has 2 buses from 3 or 4 years ago, is my understanding. And there's some Bluebird buses. They are working with us right now on potentially getting a couple more buses. And I know John had signed up and hopefully is attending here. Um, and Seth from Elko has signed up for 5 buses, and those are soon to arrive. So I just kind of wanted to give folks a sense of what's happening in the state and who is where people are on their electric bus journey. Would strongly encourage you to reach out to these folks if you're curious about their experience. We're going to get an opportunity here to talk to Seth and sort of learn more about his experience. But I wanted to share that there are other folks that you could reach out and talk to here in Nevada if you have more questions. So yeah, Seth, do you want to come off mute and I've got some discussion items here and we can kind of go through some of these. I was hoping that maybe you could just give a high level overview of what you all are doing in your experience with the Clean School Bus Program.
Yeah, so mine started, 4 or 5 years ago. We started initially, we applied for the rebate program, got declined on that. So that's kind of where I started researching the electric buses. And then, so been looking at them for, like I said, 4 or 5 years now. So quite a bit there. Then this opportunity came up to work with you guys. And that process has actually been a whole lot simpler than doing it the first time around on our own, filling out all you guys made that quite a bit easier for us. So we appreciate that. And then just we did get awarded the V2G charging infrastructure from NV Energy also. So been working with them. So all of our infrastructure is going to be paid for by NV Energy. So they'll do the installation, the chargers, all that is all paid for by them. So we didn't have any charging or infrastructure costs. So that enabled us to put all the grant money towards the cost of the buses. So, and then we did basically a lot of it was just doing, putting together spreadsheets and doing route studies and mileage and times and all that, and looking if we had any place they'd actually be feasible to service. And turned out we actually had quite a few routes that we can use them on that were mileage per day was very minimal. We have 8 routes that run less than 60 miles total a day. And granted, I do have quite a few routes. We have one that runs 86 miles one way every, and runs that 4 times a day. And then we have several other that are 60 to 70 miles one way, that do that trip 4 times a day. So those, of course, we weren't looking at, but a lot of our local and in town and just sort of kind of our outlying areas from Elko. We have several larger housing communities that are only 10, 15 miles outside of town that we do the vast majority of our busing to. So looks like that's where we're going to be deploying all these. So that's kind of where we decided on whether or not it was even feasible to even move forward with it. And then with the opportunity with the grant and the NV Energy program and all that, basically still to this point, we're zero out of pocket for our school district. So that's been a good thing too for us. And then, so then it went into looking at different types of buses and talking to other districts. I talked to districts from Colorado to Oregon, all over the country and their experiences with past ones. Just did quite a bit of research looking into the different models. And then that was kind of what guided me towards where I ended up with which manufacturer we selected. That and Then looking at warranties for batteries, that was another thing because the NV Energy program is a 15-year program. So I didn't want to get stuck with a 15-year-old bus and, being responsible for battery replacement or anything like that. So we looked for the longest battery warranty, that kind of stuff, and then just went through, toured. I've been to all of the factories that we're looking at. Went to Bluebird several years ago. Been to the Thomas Bus Factory. Went to BYD last year. Toured their facility. That was pretty interesting to see the different ways that vehicles are built. The other strong item that came up on my selection was that BYD or Ride is essentially an electric vehicle company. They're not the vehicle is built fundamentally to be an electric from the ground up. It's not a conversion. So that was another driving factor towards it. And just learning a lot about different companies and how long they've been in. So I think BYD's been basically in the vehicle manufacturing side since the early 2000s. So they've got quite a few years behind them. So kind of made my feelings a little bit easier about making that decision. And then, so like I said, not an expert on how they work or anything yet because we haven't received one, but so far everything's falling in line as long as NV Energy gets their charging infrastructure here installed this month, like what their plans are. And then our buses are expected to arrive probably in a month or so, late April, early May. And then our plan is to basically get them, do some test runs on all the routes, of course, before we deploy them, make sure everything's going to work as planned. And then that'll be it. And then next school year, we'll have them implemented. If not, or possibly in May, our school year ends May, I think it's 28th or something like that this year. So we're, and with us being a 4-day-a-week school too, that was kind of a different part of our looking at structure wise, because we have a longer gap in between our routes. Most of our buses have like 5 hours in between their runs. So that gave us opportunities there for looking at additional charging if needed and stuff like that. So kind of an overview of where we're at. So.
And what did the route planning look like? Did you use what was sort of the maximum amount that you determined you could drive the bus on a route?
We were looking at mileage wise, we wanted to not exceed basically, we wanted to keep it within like a 35-40% reserve charge levels, kind of where we set it at. So we had that extra amount for in case of severe cold weather or anything like that, we could test it on. So worked a lot with NV Energy actually on doing the route studies. They did quite a bit of work there with us too and helping us decide how to set that up. And then looking at our available charge time in between routes, there was a big part of it too, to see how much percentage we could get back in if we needed to charge them.
Yeah, and we have a spreadsheet as well that we can use. So if anyone on this call is interested in, that's typically kind of the first step in the process is to go through the bus routes and just at a very basic level sort of identify which routes, would even be feasible to do from an electric standpoint. So that's something that we can help folks out with as a follow-up as well if you're interested in that. And then, were there any issues that you had, Seth, with your administration, like in terms of procurement of the buses, or signing up for the program? Was there any like kind of tips there?
No, everybody was pretty supportive from our board to our superintendent. So we didn't encourage all or incur a lot of hurdles or anything like that. So um, just being in a rural area, we're not in the most popular EV supporting, climate, but we haven't had a lot of backlash or anything like that or concerns. And like I said, a lot of it came down to the fact that, we're not spending, our general fund money to purchase these and, things like that. It's part of this grant program. And I kind of pitched it as it's a good way for us to study to see if this is feasible in our area without spending our district's money. So that way we'll know if it's something we want to move forward and expand or whether or not, we finish out this program and wait for the, who knows in 10, 15 years, the technology advancement, that's the other thing is the battery technology and everything changes so fast and rapidly. So 5 years from now, the buses could have, 50 more miles or 100 more miles of range, who knows? So yeah, it just depends on what comes next. So
And then I know you talked about a little bit about you had a couple of routes that you thought maybe were possible, but you weren't sure how the elevation was going to impact the range.
yeah, we wanted to look at some of them. We have quite a bit of some steep hill terrain and stuff that we would go up and down, but we did get to have a demo bus out for a while, and we drove it through some of that terrain, and we were actually surprised on how much it recovered energy on the downhill sides and under that. So yeah, we'll figure once we get some in, and we'll at days off or stuff like that or breaks, we'll experiment with them in different areas and see how they perform and what kind of battery range we can get out. But I think our biggest concern in our area is just going to be the cold weather operation and how they perform in that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know some districts across the country have installed propane backup heating for some of those colder days, to make the buses work in the cold weather. I also know that some of the early buses had more challenges with cold weather than the newer buses, from what I've understood. And I think we're going to try to talk a little bit more about that next webinar. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the scrappage. So I know you were in a pretty good position. You had a lot of old buses when you first got to Elko. So you had a bunch of old buses that qualified for the scrapping part of the program. Do you want to talk at all about how the scrapping part of the component of the program worked for you?
yeah, it was pretty simple actually. Like I said, there's not too many steps to it. I'm familiar with the process from way back when. Done this when I worked in the automotive industry at dealership levels and stuff like that for years. So I've scrapped vehicles before for EPA programs. It's pretty simple. You take some pictures. They tell you exactly what you need. You just verify all your VIN numbers and that stuff and engine ID numbers and that kind of stuff. And they want pictures of all that. And then then we have, fortunately in Elko, we do have a steel recycling company here. Pacific Steel is who we utilize that is a dismantler and scrapper. That's they're probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles from our facility. So it wasn't too bad to get them over there, but the process isn't hard at all. We just drain fluids out and you disable the engine block by putting a 2-inch hole through the block, and then you cut the frame rails in half. So as long as the people that are doing it, the garage facility has access to we just used a plasma torch to cut the frame, and then they used just an oxyacetylene torch to put a hole in the engine block. So that was really the only part of the mechanical part of dismantling it, is just cutting that and draining all the fluids out of the vehicle. And then we just took it in for the scrap, and we didn't remove any of the other stuff with our dismantler. They just deduct off of for like tires and that stuff off the weight. And they actually, I think the current price of scrap steel, I was trying to think, we averaged about like getting about $500 per bus in scrap steel weight. So, which pretty much covered the cost of the tow bill to get them there, but also you guys also covered the cost of the tow bill through the grant. So
Yeah, the grant pay can offer up to $1,000 towards the scrappage costs. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, we really didn't spend anything other than a mechanic's labor, which we're paying for anyway. So we didn't have to buy any specialty items or do anything crazy. So it was actually a pretty easy process. We did last Thursday, we scrapped our fifth and final one and hauled it in. And so we've got all 5 of ours scrapped already. And then, so.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks, Seth. This is super helpful. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of the topics I was hoping to chat about. I don't know if you've got any last thoughts on anything we might have missed.
No, not really. Like I said, I'm available if anybody does have questions or wants to reach out about some of the process working with you guys, or the people that haven't yet or are thinking about. Be more than happy to answer any questions with that. You guys have been more than helpful throughout the process and easy to get a hold of, and always answer all the questions right away. So it's been a pretty easy process. So.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, just looking through the list of attendees here. I mean, I don't know, Scott or John, if you all have any interest in sharing your experience. I know you guys acquired some electric school buses several years ago that wasn't a super positive experience. So I if you guys are interested in sharing that at all, just as a counterpoint to what's going on, let us know. Otherwise, kind of open the floor to other questions from folks.
I actually do have a question that came through the Q&A.
Oh, great.
And Seth, you may have answered this, but when did you actually place the order with Ride? Was that answered?
That's a good point.
We placed our order, I think it was to do finalized, I want to say September, October of 2025. And they finished production of the buses in the end of January or February. And then were shipped to Model 1 to the dealer. And then they'll put them through putting all the district level stuff and all that stuff on, stickers and that kind of stuff. And then we're trying to coordinate our delivery with the charging infrastructure. So probably about it was probably a 4 to 5 month from order to buses being completed built. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the quote we got, so we're sort of getting quotes right now for a couple school districts, and they're, maybe it's conservative, but they're giving us 8 to 10 months as a build time, at least for the ride buses. So
Yeah, probably. There was when I was down there visiting with them, they had a rather large contract. I don't want to talk too much about what they said down there, but with California, with a municipality over there for city buses. So that was going in. They kind of had our buses funneled in between the two builds. So I think that's probably what extended it, or where they're extending it out now. So, and then they are currently also, when I was down there visiting with them, building a second facility for electric bus. That's, I think it was about twice the size of their current facility. So
can you talk to I know I was out there just recently, a couple weeks ago, and it sounded like NV Energy was going to be there pretty soon, and they were going to do the install, they said, in a couple days. But maybe you can talk a little bit more. John asked about what the ETA is on your charging.
what they told us was the end of this month, but I haven't seen the contractor yet. So I'm not sure if they're finished, or I'm waiting back to hear back from NV Energy on if they're still waiting for components. So that was still a question on delivery time. They didn't quite have a answer to when everything was going to show up yet on time. But and our installation probably, well, from the contractor that came out and looked, was one of the easiest ones he said he was going to do in Nevada, because our is basically an empty lot with nothing in the way and all that. So they don't have a lot of anything to tear up or do. It's just all a gravel flat pad right now. It was part of our future expansion for our facilities up here. So that's probably a lot of, the timeline in construction too. That'll make it go a quicker process for them, because they don't have to remove anything. So, but yeah, the timeline was supposed to be the end of this month. But like I said, I'm waiting to hear back from them. I have a feeling we'll probably be into probably mid-April or something now at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Clark County was expecting their install originally in January, and I think they're hoping to have it done this month now. So, so we've got a question from Travis. He's wondering, I know you guys ordered the Type D BYD bus. Which other buses did you seriously consider ordering?
We had looked at early onset, like I said, for quite a few years back. It was looking at the Type C's. We looked at the Thomas quite heavily early on, and then we looked at quite a bit at some of the other buses that are the manufacturers no longer exist. So, but the only bus model we didn't look at was Internationals. But the people I talked to that had them, the ones I spoke with, had nothing but good to say about those. But I'm not really familiar. Didn't research theirs a lot, but we did look at pretty much Bluebird, Thomas. We looked at Lion and Green Power and Ride. So we're the ones we researched. So, but I did not look at any like Type A's or anything like that.
John's got another question about, can you talk to the warranty on the buses from Ride? And do you have any sense of, like, if something goes wrong with that bus that your mechanics can't handle, are they able to send folks to you to fix the buses?
Yeah, that was quite a bit of contributing factor also we looked at, speaking with, I believe the Bluebird powertrain is still a Cummins one, which you have to deal with your local Cummins dealership on, and ours was not electric up onto par, I guess you would say. They didn't have any trained technicians on the electric side, so that was a challenge there. Speaking with Ride, yes, they offered service to your, they would basically, so far, just when we had the demo bus, even calling them, you can get in touch with an engineer right away that can give you, hey, check this, check that. And if not, yes, they told me they would offer services under warranty to come out to your facility. And then, like I said, with the warranty, the biggest thing was their battery warranty is a 12-year, or most of the others, the longest, I think, one besides that, the next one down was 7 years. So that was a big factor that we looked at too.
What's the warranty on the other components of the bus that's not the battery related?
Oh, gee, they're all over just like a regular bus. There's some that's 1 year, there's some that's 2 years, some that's 5 year. Yeah, there was, and then different mileages. It was, I think if you go onto the Ride website, I think they had a warranty pamphlet. If not, you can just email them and they'll send it out to you. That has all the breakdown of the warranty. But yeah, there's, because I mean, you have a paint warranty, you have a body warranty. Yeah, there's so many different, and they're all different. It's not like the buses, everything on the bus is a certain amount of time. There's different timelines for different items, but yeah.
And you have some backup buses, so if something went wrong with one of these buses and they were out of commission, you'd be able to sort of have another bus to help fill in.
Yeah, our plan, my plan from the beginning was to always to schedule this in as these are supplemental to our fleet. So we still are going to maintain the 5 diesel buses that would have ran these routes, and they're just going to be, we'll of course switch them out to our older, so basically the spare type buses, and we'll just have them there as backups. If, yeah, one day if we have our crazy -25 for a week in a row, and yeah, we can't get them to heat up or get them to go far enough, we have the diesel ones we just fire up and run. That's kind of has always been my plan and the way it structured it. I wasn't expanding, or using these as replacements. It's just an expansion of our fleet, and we're still going to keep the same amount of diesels, and then until we have good data for ourselves to see if we can run without, the backups. So.
Yeah, it'd be great to reconnect with you in a year.
Yeah, and it's crazy living where we do up here in rural Nevada. Our power is not exactly the most stable during storms either. So that was a factor was, well, what if the power goes out? Because we've had, sometimes we'll have some crazy windstorms that come through with a little hail or ice or blowing snow, and it'll knock the power grid out overnight and stuff like that. So.
That's it for the questions on the Zoom chat here. So I think, unless there's any other questions or hand raises, I think we're gonna call it there, and thank everybody for joining. We're gonna send out a follow-up email with a survey. So WRI has asked me to have everyone complete a survey. So if you are willing to do that, be super helpful for me and our team. And we will also send out a copy of this recording, as well as some invites and reminders for the upcoming webinars. Any topics that you all would like to have discussed in more detail in future webinars, I'm also open to adjusting those based on what folks would like to hear about. So thank you for attending, and Seth and Joanne, I really appreciate you all being on.
Thank you so much, Clayton.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you guys for inviting us. And yep, like I said, any questions, about the preemptive stuff before you get the buses, yeah, I'd be willing to answer or help out with anything I can.
Yeah, we'll share your info on the follow-up email too, Seth. So thanks. All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.